In the 11th century, Anselm of Canterbury presented his famous ontological argument for the existence of God. His contemporary Guanelot of Marmoutiers disagreed with him, but not on his conclusion, simply on his logic. And that's exactly what I'm going to do today. Also the opposite of what I'm going to do today, because I'm disagreeing with the logic of an argument despite agreeing with its conclusion, but instead of being a theistic argument in question, it's an atheistic one. So why were Jesus' miracles so small? Why did he show his miraculous nature to so few people? He's omnipotent, right? So why wouldn't he have done more? And this is an argument that's often presented as though it has a threat to the logical case for the Bible. The logical case as opposed to the evidential case, where the logical case is the internal consistency of the Bible, whether it's feasible, whether it makes sense. And the evidential is comparing the Bible to other evidence and seeing whether those can both be true. And it doesn't really pose a threat to the logical argument, which is something that people often frame it to do. The very fact that God is omnipotent, and Jesus in turn is omnipotent, is the reason why this actually does make sense in the context of the Bible's theology, which is that the amount of miraculous action for an omnipotent being is arbitrary. When you or I do something and we say, wow, that was a significant effort, we don't really say it like that, but when we say that took a lot of energy to do, we're saying it took a large portion of the total energy we had to give. But the total energy that Jesus or God is supposed to be able to give is infinite. So any amount of action is essentially a 0% of his total potential action, which makes any amount of miraculous action entirely arbitrary. Now, I know I said I disagree with the logic of this argument, and that is true if it is presented as a threat to the logical argument for the Bible. But as a threat to the evidential case for the Bible, I think it really does stand to be considered, because when we look at the evidential case for the Bible, we have to do that through abductive reasoning, meaning there's a number of possible truths behind the Bible and all the other evidence we see, and we need to figure out which of those truths is most likely to result in the evidence that we have. And in the case that there wasn't any supernatural action actually occurring, you would expect the claimed supernatural action to be rather mundane, because that's a lot easier to get away with. If the supernatural action was spectacular and observed by more people and affected more, even maybe on a geological level where we could actually find physical evidence of it, that would be a lot easier to test. But if you're making false claims about supernatural action, you don't want it to be testable. So if you claim that the supernatural action was rather small and mundane, that takes out that possibility. So it's more likely in the case that there was no supernatural action that we would see what we see. That is not to say that it proves that the supernatural action didn't happen, but that it does not support the fact that it did. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment below if you disagree with me or if you agree with me, but especially if you disagree with me. Let's discuss. That's kind of what I made this whole channel for, is discussion, because I have a real fear of becoming a victim of the echoing chamber effect, especially with algorithmic news feeds, and all that. It's really easy to get caught up in your own side's arguments, and that's why I like debates so much, because watching debates is fantastic, because you cannot straw man in a debate, and you can't commit a number of fallacies in a debate, because the other person is right there to call you out on it. And so debates are fantastic, but even debates, if the algorithm is feeding me debates where the side that I disagree with just has a weak representative, then that's still an echoing chamber effect that's happening to me. So I really want to discuss. And I have a real fear of my channel just becoming a bunch of people that agree with me, which is probably inevitably going to happen. But I'm not a Christian, I'm an atheist, but I still go to church and I still talk to tons of people who are Christians to try and understand where they're coming from and try and understand if there's a rational case there and that kind of a thing. And I'm also subscribed to this thing called Devil's Advocate, which you should totally check out. I'm not sure. I'll link it in the description. But Devil's Advocate is this service that sends you an email every week with a link to an article, a well-written, well-thought-out article that you disagree with, or that you disagree with going into it. In fact, I just got a Devil's Advocate this morning, which actually changed my mind about the reasons for the racial wealth gap in America. So, anyway, Devil's Advocate is great, and I think that's a really important thing for everybody to do. Not necessarily use Devil's Advocate in particular, but just seek opinions and views that are different from your own, and to remember that no idea is sacred. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. We will get to morality probably later. I know I said I would do that this video, but it's in development still, so we'll see. I mean, it's always going to be in development, but I'm not really ready to go with that yet. But soon we will be able to get into some controversial stuff soon. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.